Welcome back. You know the deal. Sheet metal is fun. Tonight we're going to put our thinking caps on. What we have to do as sheet metal workers is to be able to deconstruct something. If we see one that's already made and we want to make another, we have to be able to deconstruct that item so that we can take it back to its flat state. And then we can make a new one, fold it up, and have a copy of that. The other thing we have to do is sometimes we are the ones making the item for the first time. We have to visualize what we need, so whether it's a cap or a channel or a pan. And then the other thing I want you to do is every time you make a drawing, I want you to do it to scale. I worked at a shop and I was the shop guy, and the field guys would send dimensions. They would send a drawing. Here's what I want you to make. So here's a common, let's look at this. This is a drawing that I would get. Then they would add the dimensions in. This is 48 inches by 48 inches. And this is a 36-inch hole. That doesn't help us visualize our actual project. The hole is not to scale at all. This actually slows us down and hurts more than it helps. So let's look at this. If we were going to draw a 48 by 48 flat sheet with a 36-inch hole in the middle, let's go ahead and give ourselves a fighting chance. 36. Look at that. That's more like it. So at least now, when we go to the sheet of metal and we pull it out of the rack, we can visually begin to see the project and see what it's going to look like before we even get to start to begin fabrication. So I've got a few items over here on the bench. I want to go over and look at these. We're going to take the camera over and look at them. And what I want you to do is to look at each one of these items. Take a moment. If you need to pause, pause. And I want you to get a notepad and a pencil or a paper. And I want you to look at each item and visualize it back when it was a flat sheet of metal. Because that's going to help you fabricate. Because what you have to do in your mind, you have to see the finished project, or else you're not going to have a target to aim at. So let's go over, take a look at some of these things. Some are easy, some are more complex. Let's take a look at them, and I want you to begin to deconstruct. I want you to begin to visualize what it looked like when it was a flat piece, and I want you to make a drawing. But whenever you make the drawing, when the item is the freshest in your mind, I want you to always make it to scale. Give yourself a fighting chance that whenever you go over to the shear and you cut your piece out, I want you to already have a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like. Let's go look at these. Let's go look at these pieces over here. All right, here we are. These are the projects that I want you to look at. Let's start with the most basic of all projects, an angle. You can see that this was at one time a flat sheet, and we bent it right in the middle. This one's bent right around 90 degrees. Man, you can make a lot of stuff with one of these. Look at, you can even imagine, what can you make with that? A lot of stuff. Let's move up to this one. This one's stainless steel, but that doesn't really add anything. If you look at this, this is actually a rectangular pan, and it has a mounting flange off this end. This one goes in a bar, and this screws to the bar, and the drinks go in here. This is a drink tray for a bar. So this is, if you look how closely related it is to this. The simplest thing we have, one bend. And look at this. Imagine that one bend just being repeated over these times. And I want you to look at this. Give it a good look. There's an end on here, an end on here, and a flange here for mounting to the bar. I want you to look at that, and I want you to get a notepad out. I want you to make a drawing. Do the best you can at drawing what this would look like when it was a flat sheet. All right, I think you got it. We're gonna move right along. Here's our old standby, old pan. I think you guys remember this lesson. This is pretty easy. We've gone past this. This is a tray. I made about 20 of these 40 years ago. I was practicing for a contest in the sheet metal, and I made 40 of these as part of that practice. So I want you to look at it. There's a hem on this edge. There's a tab, there's pop rivets. This has a handle in the front. The handle in the front is hemmed over. And I'm saying hem just the way a seamstress would hem a garment. It's folded over this way we don't have a sharp edge. So I want you to get a good look at this. Look at it from the side, the back, the front. And I want you to deconstruct this. I want you to visualize what did it look like when it was a flat sheet of metal. And I want you to draw a picture of what that looked like before I bend it into this, into a little bin. When I was a sheet metal apprentice, I didn't want to go to sheet metal school with a suitcase like everybody else. So I made myself a sheet metal briefcase. A briefcase made of sheet metal. I've had this for over 40 years. Look at this. Even the handle, I made the handle out of sheet metal. There you go, look at that. World's classic aircraft. Psh, come on. So these are some of my old school papers in here, back from 79, 78, back when I was an apprentice, back before I became a journeyman. This is not much more than a pan. We have a pan, we have a lid. Who wouldn't want to go to school looking like this? That's awesome. And I still use it. I'm a car guy, so I make my own valve covers. I thought you guys would get a kick out of this one. This is a little more advanced than a pan, but I just wanted you to show this is what we're going to get into in the future. I mean, the stuff we can do with sheet metal, come on, get serious. Last but not least, on tonight's visual aid, sheet metal is fun. I made this clipboard over 30 years ago. You can buy a clipboard, but come on, look how you can impress your friends and neighbors if you showed up and you showed them that you made your very own clipboard. Look at that. All right. I think this will give you an idea of how to begin to visualize what something looked like when it was flat. We put one bend in it, now we have an angle. We add a couple more bends and a couple of ends. Now we have something that mounts on a bar, holds drinks. We have a pan with a sloped front for easy access. And these things will last 100 years. They'll last 200 years. Suitcase, come on. There's no way you guys have seen one of those before. Who else would do that but a true dyed-in-the-wool sheet metal worker? Don't forget, all of this, come on. Am I lying? Is sheet metal fun? Come on. Let's go back to the drawing board. We got a couple of things I want to look at. Then we're going to get into tonight's project. Let's head back to the board. All right, we're back. This is a big night, big day, whatever time it is where you're at, it's a big one of those. We're gonna make a tool tray today. We're gonna draw out the pattern. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a tool tray and we're gonna deconstruct it so that we can reconstruct it. So let's move this, let's get rid of all this stuff here. We know what we're doing tonight, deconstruction and visualization. Dang it, that's twice I've said that word and I said it right both times. It's the little things in life. All right, so what we're gonna make tonight, we're gonna make something that'll give you a sense of accomplishment. It's something you're gonna be able to hold, and maybe it won't impress your friends, but it'll impress you. So what we're gonna make tonight, we're gonna make a tool tray. So we're going to do a drawing that's just going to help us visualize what we're making, and then we're going to draw it out in a flat sheet. So we're going to make, let's see. Then we're going to make a handle. It's going to go across the top here. So we got to erase these lines out. Man, look at that. That's what we're going to make, the tool tray. So now that we know this is what we're going to make, anytime that we can bend, bending is so much faster, cleaner, stronger, and simpler than almost any other form of attachment. Welding might be better, but we're going to do this tonight. We're not going to weld. We're going to make ourselves a nice little tool tray, and we're going to gain a sense of accomplishment. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited too. Here we go. Let's see. You know what? I'm going to leave that up. Now, hopefully you guys can see what we have here. We have a tool tray that we can put things in. And we have a top. The handle is actually going to be a small tray for small things, whatever it might be. It could be seeds for your garden. It could be pencils and pens. It could be whatever you want it to be. So let's look at this outside shell and let's draw what that would look like. Getting back to scale, always give yourself the best fighting chance you can and make your drawing to scale. If it's a rectangle, make it a rectangle. Don't try to help yourself visualize what it's going to look like. So we know the base is a rectangle, and we know the ends look like this. So that end, we can take that end and put it right on here. That end right there. We're going to do the same thing down here. So what we're drawing is our project when it's flat. So here are the two ends. Here's the bottom. Now we're going to draw these sides right here. Now the side, they're going to come together, and so this side has to be the same height as this side. Do the best you can to keep the scale right. And what I mean by that is, see this corner right here? This distance is the same as that. So whenever we fold it up, we're going to end up, those two things are going to intersect right there where we want them to intersect. So this is wrong. Look at, we've made that side almost the same size as our base. Now we're giving ourselves a lot of work. We're giving ourselves a lot of extra work that we got to go back and correct later. So we already know these two dimensions should be about the same. so that when they're folded up, they're going to meet and make a corner like that. Now, the next thing we're going to do, we don't want this top edge to be sharp. We looked at something over in our projects and we had folded a hem on it. So let's add that hem. That hem is a 1/2 inch. So let's make it small. Let's make it a 1/2 inch. Let's put a 1/2 inch on here, 1/2 on here. All these things, all these halves are going to make a lot more sense once we get over to the pattern. This tab right here is going to be the tab where our rivets are going to go in. When we fold these ends up, this tab will come around the corner, and that's where we're going to put our rivets in. We're also going to have rivets on the ends. So let's draw this tab in here. There's a lot, I realize there's a lot going on. But I want you guys to see what it looked like, what this looks like when it's flat. Let's go ahead and fill in the numbers. This is going to be around 2. And since we're just making this drawing for ourselves, ordinarily we would write 2 inches. We already know we're dealing in inches, so we don't need to make the inch mark. So just for clarity, we're just going to not put in the inches. Our toolbox is 7 inches here. It's 14 here. If it helps, we can add these lines in. So now we know the base of our toolbox, of our tool tray, is 14 by 7. Here's our 14. Here's our 7. Yeah. So our hems are going to be a 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch. All this drawing is right here is a visual aid for us so that when we go over and cut a flat sheet of metal, we're going to have all of the thinking done already. So right here, our tray is going to be 2.5 inches deep. From here to here is going to be 7 inches. Then we have a 1/2 inch hem. 1/2 inch hem up here. So what we can do, let's add up, let's figure out what size piece of metal we need. We're going to need 14 plus 7 plus 7. That's 28. We're going to need a 1/2 inch hem here and a 1/2 inch hem there. That's going to be 29 inches. Let's go ahead and write that down, 29. So we have 7, 14, and 7, 28. We added our 1/2 inch hem here, our 1/2 inch hem here, 2 halves equal 1, so 28 plus 1, 29. Let's add up the size piece we need here. We have 7. We can add the 2.5 and the 1/2. That makes it easier on our math. So 2.5 plus a 1/2 is 3. 7 plus 3 is 10. And we know we have 3 on this side as well. That's going to be 13. We're going to leave that in. Don't take it out. 29 by 13. And just in case any of you are wondering, we're going to make this project .26 gauge galvanized. 26 gauge. On metal gauges, the higher the number, the thinner the metal. So as this number goes lower, 24 gauge is thicker than 26, 22 thicker. So as the number gets smaller, the material gets thicker. I like 26 for our project tonight because we're going to bend this up by hand. We're going to try to do this whole thing without all these root and toot and snazzy tools around here. So we're going to do this with stuff that if you went to the hardware store and spend a few bucks, make a little investment in your hobby, make an investment in your future. For a few bucks, I'm going to show you the tools that you can buy, and we're going to make this tool tray tonight. I've got it laid out over here on the bench, just in the interest of time. So let's go over to the bench, and we're going to look at this piece right here, 29 by 13. I've got it right over here on the bench. I've got it blanked out. One thing I want to show you, we're going to pop rivet these corners together on our toolbox. The way a pop rivet works is there are two components. There's the mandrel and the rivet. This is a pop rivet tool. Pop is actually a brand name, so blind rivet. The pop rivet is like saying Coca-Cola. So what I want you to do is see how a rivet works. And in order to do that, this is the size rivet we're going to use. And I want to show you how a rivet works. This is what we're going to be using. Look at this visual aid. Look at the size of this one. So I want to use the big one, so I want you to understand how a pop rivet works. The mandrel goes into the riveting tool, and the rivet tool holds the pop rivet in place and pulls the mandrel through the rivet. And when it pulls this ball through the rivet expands into the hole and tightens up and rivets the two pieces or three pieces together, however many pieces you're going to rivet together. The ball is what swells up inside the rivet, and right here there's an engineered breaking point. At some point we're going to close the rivet, and it's going to pull this ball through, and it's going to expand the rivet in the hole, get it tight. It makes a mechanical fastening, and then the mandrel breaks off at this engineered breaking point and leaves you with a rivet. I'm hoping you can see this. What I've done is I put a rivet into our pop rivet gun, and I want you to watch this ball as it's pulled through the rivet. And I hope you can see it. As I squeeze the handles, see that ball? It's pulling the ball through the hollow rivet. And then we're going to hear the sound that everybody knows, the pop. Here we go. So now the ball is inside the rivet, and so the ball was pulled through the hollow rivet and expanded the rivet into the hole and made a mechanical fastener. There you go, a lesson on pop rivets. Let's get over to that flat stock. Take a look at our tool tray.